The dining room was too quiet for a family gathering. No laughter, no casual chatter, just the ticking of the wall clock and the faint scrape of silverware against porcelain. Ava sat between her cousin and the empty chair that was supposed to be hers since childhood, but tonight everything felt out of place. Even the chandelier above them flickered like it didn't want to witness what was about to happen. The roast chicken steamed in the center of the table, untouched, as if the food itself sensed the tension. Ava lifted her fork, the metal clinking lightly against her plate, a sound that echoed far too loudly in the stillness. She glanced around. Her mother avoided eye contact. Her brother stared at his phone. And her father? Her father watched her like he had been waiting for this exact moment. Then he leaned back in his chair, exhaled, and delivered the sentence that shattered the room. "We spent your savings on someone better." Her fork froze midair. For a second, she wasn't sure she had heard him correctly. But the way everyone else stiffened told her she had. Her chest tightened, her pulse thudding against her ribs, the hook she never expected to be living repeated in her mind like it belonged in someone else's story. My dad looked straight at me and said, "We spent your savings on someone better." No hesitation. No blink. Just the truth. Her throat felt dry. Her vision tunneled. She whispered, barely able to form the words. "Better than me?" Her father didn't flinch. Didn't think. Didn't soften. He simply nodded, as if the explanation were obvious. As if this betrayal were small. A chair scraped the floor, slow. Controlled. Dangerous. Grandpa, who hadn't spoken more than 3 words all evening, began to rise. His hands pressed against the table, knuckles white. His jaw locked so tightly a vein pulsed in his temple. His eyes, usually warm, had turned cold and sharp, fixed directly on Ava's father. "What?" he said, voice low, trembling with restraint. "Did you just say to my granddaughter?" Ava swallowed hard. Because the truth was, this betrayal didn't start tonight. This was only the moment everything finally broke open. My name is Ava. For most of my life I thought staying quiet made things easier. Easier for them. Not for me. I learned early that silence kept the peace, that taking up less space meant I wouldn't be accused of overreacting or being dramatic. So I shrank myself. I folded my edges inward until I became someone who blended into corners instead of standing in the room. Meanwhile, Noah, my older brother, was raised under a spotlight so bright it nearly blinded the rest of us. He was the golden child, the one with potential, the one who deserved the best because he would supposedly go far. Every family decision, every conversation, every sacrifice circled back to Noah. I remember birthdays where Noah got bikes and gadgets. I got, "You're practical, sweetie. You don't need much." And a slice of cake that tasted like obligation. He unwrapped shining new things with excitement. I got socks, a notebook, a reminder to be grateful, even though gratitude was all I ever offered. It wasn't that I wanted expensive gifts. I just wanted to matter. School didn't change anything. When Noah brought home a C-, Mom said he was trying his best, and Dad blamed the teacher. When I brought home an A, the response was always the same. "Good. Keep it up." No celebration. No pride. Just expectation. Award nights were the worst. Noah didn't get many ribbons, but he always got attention. Pictures, hugs, applause. When my name was called, my father would clap with 2 slow taps while whispering to my mother about traffic on the way home. By the time I turned 16, I understood the unspoken family rule. Noah needed investing in. I didn't, so I started working part-time at a bakery after school. Flour dusted my clothes every evening, and I came home smelling like sugar and exhaustion. But I saved every paycheck. I dreamed of college, my own apartment, maybe even a car someday. Small dreams, but mine. Then Dad approached me one night while I was sorting bills on my bed. He told me proudly that he wanted to help me be responsible. Said he could set up a savings account for me, manage it, make sure my money grew. I believed him, I trusted him. Every week, every month I handed him envelopes of cash. When I graduated and took a full-time job, the deposits got larger. I imagined the account growing, imagined freedom growing with it. I didn't know it then, but the favoritism I grew up with wasn't harmless. It was leading somewhere. Somewhere darker than I ever expected, and that savings account, my one hope for independence, was about to become the final proof. It was a normal Wednesday evening. Quiet, predictable, nothing unusual. Ava came home from work, set her bag on the counter, microwaved leftover pasta, and opened her laptop like she always did. Checking her bank account was part of her weekly routine, not because she expected surprises, but because it gave her a small sense of control in a life where she rarely had any. But tonight, the screen didn't give her reassurance. It punched the air out of her lungs. The number didn't make sense. I blinked, refreshed the page. The amount wasn't low, it was nearly empty. Her first instinct was denial. Maybe the app was glitching. Maybe her internet was lagging. Maybe she typed the password wrong. But the digits stayed the same. Cold, sharp, merciless, her savings, years of work, years of early mornings and double shifts, reduced to barely enough for groceries. Her cursor hovered over the transaction history. When she finally clicked, her stomach twisted. Multiple withdrawals. Transfers she never authorized. Amounts pulled at random, sometimes small, sometimes huge. Like someone dipping into her future whenever they felt like it. Her heartbeat rattled inside her ribs. Don't panic yet. Don't assume the worst. That was the voice she always used to calm herself down. The same voice that kept her quiet during childhood. The same voice that taught her to excuse things that hurt. But this time, the excuses weren't working. The next day, she drove to her parents' house, hoping for a harmless explanation. Maybe a bank error. Maybe identity theft. Maybe anything other than what her mind was whispering. She walked inside without knocking, just like she always did, and froze. Noah sat on the couch with a brand new top-of-the-line laptop. Bleak. Expensive. The exact model she once dreamed of buying for herself. He grinned without looking up. Dad said it was time I had something decent for class. Cool, right? Her breath caught. Her fingers went cold before she could respond. Mom brushed past her with a basket of laundry. Don't make a big deal out of it, Ava. Be supportive. He's at an important age. Important age. Important needs. Important expenses. Everything about Noah was always important. Ava stood there, the pieces clicking together one by one. Quiet, horrifying, undeniable. Something was very, very wrong, and she knew this wasn't an accident. It was intentional. The kitchen smelled like coffee and dish soap, the same familiar mix Ava had grown up with. But tonight it felt colder, emptier, like the walls themselves knew what was coming. Dad stood at the counter sorting mail, casual, relaxed, humming under his breath, as if her entire world hadn't tilted the night before. Ava stepped in slowly, gripping the edge of the counter to steady her voice. Dad, she said. I checked my account. Most of the money is gone. He didn't look surprised. Not even curious. He just sighed, set the mail down, and turned toward her with the calmness of someone discussing the weather. He didn't flinch. We used it, Dad said. For your brother. He needs chances, things you didn't. The words hit harder than any shout could have. No emotion. No remorse. Just fact. Ava stared at him, her pulse roaring in her ears. You used my savings. Without asking me. We did what made sense, he replied, folding his arms like he was lecturing her. You're stable, Ava. You've always been stable. Noah struggles. His future needs more support. Stable. That word again. Used like a compliment but shaped like a cage. She felt something shift inside her. A slow, sharp cracking. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. We knew you'd overreact, he said calmly, as if she were a child. And we couldn't risk Noah losing the opportunity. You have a job. You'll rebuild. Rebuild. As if her years of sacrifices were a sandcastle he could pat back into shape. Ava walked out of the kitchen because if she stayed, she would break. She kept hearing his tone. Steady, reasonable, practiced. This wasn't a mistake, it was a decision. Later that night, while her parents slept, she found herself in the small office room, drawn by instinct more than thought. She opened the drawer where Dad kept important documents. A folder sat on top, her name printed in bold across loan paperwork she had never signed. Loans she never took. debts she apparently owed. A chill ran through her. That was the moment she stopped being afraid and started paying attention. Ava didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying her father's voice over and over. The calm cruelty of it, the certainty that she wouldn't fight back. Fear twisted in her stomach at first, cold and familiar. But as the hours passed, something else began to take its place. Focus. A sharp, awakening clarity. By sunrise, she wasn't trembling anymore. She was planning. She texted Lily, her closest friend, someone who never sugarcoated anything. They met at a small cafe near Ava's work, the kind where the mismatched chairs made the place feel honest. Ava slid into the seat across from her, hands shaking as she pushed the printed bank statement across the table. Lily's eyes scanned the page once, twice, and then she let out a low whistle. "That's not just messed up," she said, looking up. "That's illegal." Ava exhaled shakily, the truth landing harder when spoken aloud. Lily leaned forward. "Ava, be honest. Are they right? Do they think you won't do anything?" A lump formed in her throat. Years of silence, swallowed complaints, minimized pain. All answering that question for her. She swallowed. Not anymore. The next stop was Grandpa's house. She knocked, and he opened the door with the same warm eyes she'd trusted since childhood. But when he saw her expression, his smile faded. "Come in, sweetheart. Tell me everything." They sat at the kitchen table. His safe place, her anchor, and Ava laid out the evidence. The empty account, the laptop, the confession, the loan documents with her name forged across the bottom. Grandpa's face hardened as he listened, the lines around his eyes deepening with each detail. "A family that loves you," he said carefully, "doesn't use you as a resource. They don't take from you because you're quiet. They don't steal your future to fund someone else's." Ava's lips trembled. "So this is abuse." "It is," he said without hesitation. "Financial abuse. And it's time we stop it." Together they spread everything out. Bank statements, screenshots, dates of withdrawals, Dad's messages, copies of paperwork. Grandpa organized them, labeling each piece with steady hands while Ava created a folder. Her own case file. By the time they finished, the sun was setting. Ava closed the folder and held it against her chest. She wasn't just collecting proof. She was preparing for the moment they never expected her to take. The moment she stood up, Ava arrived at her parents' house with the folder tucked under her arm, tight enough that her knuckles whitened. She wasn't here for dinner. She wasn't here to forgive. She was here for truth. The dining room looked almost identical to the night of the first confrontation. Same chandelier. Same stiff chairs. Same quiet tension humming in the air like electricity right before a storm. Mom set down a bowl of mashed potatoes without looking at Ava directly. Noah waved awkwardly, sensing something was off but not knowing what. Dad sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, already irritated. "You're late," he said, as if punctuality was the issue tonight. Ava took her seat slowly, placing the folder beside her plate. The silence felt sharp enough to cut. Dad cleared his throat. "Before we start, let's address what happened earlier this week." He looked at her the way someone might look at a problem to be solved. "We spent your savings on someone better." Grandpa, who had been quiet until now, stiffened. He slowly placed his fork down with a soft clink. "Name that someone," he said, voice low, controlled. "Now." Dad blinked, thrown off by the directness. "Obviously Noah. Who else would it be?" Noah's head snapped up. "Wait, what?" Dad waved him off. "You needed the support. She's fine." Ava didn't wait. She reached for the folder, feeling the room tilt toward her. I pulled out the folder. Every statement. Every transfer. Every lie documented on paper. She opened it and began laying the sheets on the table. Bank statements with mismatched withdrawals, screenshots, dates, forged signatures on loan paperwork. Each piece landed like a blow. Noah leaned forward, eyes widening as he skimmed the pages. "I didn't ask for this," he said quietly. "I had no idea." Mom shot up from her chair, voice trembling. "Ava, you're making this This mess in front of everyone? Why would you bring this out now? Dad's voice cracked for the first time. Ava, put that away. We can discuss this privately. But Grandpa slammed his hand on the table hard enough to rattle the dishes. No. We discuss it now. He pointed at Dad, eyes blazing. You stole from her. You forged her name. You took her future because she was quiet. I'm done pretending this is anything but what it is. Dad's face went pale. I didn't steal, then return it, Grandpa snapped. Every dollar. Or she files a financial abuse report. And I'll be standing right beside her when she does. Mom clutched her chest. We don't have that kind of. Then you'll adjust, Grandpa said without mercy. Sell something. Figure it out. But you will repay her. Dad swallowed hard, shoulders collapsing. The facade of control slipped completely. Fine, he muttered. We'll return it. All of it. Ava gathered the papers calmly, sliding them back into the folder. This time no one told her to stay. No one told her to keep quiet. She stood up, pushed her chair in, and walked out of the house on her own terms. And for the first time in her life, they watched her leave. The weeks that followed were quiet, uncomfortably quiet. No big apologies, no dramatic reconciliations. Just cold envelopes slipped into Ava's hands during short, awkward visits. Her money came back in tense installments, each payment a reminder of what they had taken. Her parents never said sorry. They never even tried. But they stopped crossing lines they used to step over without thinking. Grandpa checked in every few days, stopping by with groceries or calling to ask if she'd eaten. His presence stayed steady, a grounding force that reminded her she wasn't alone. One evening, Noah showed up at her door, hands in his pockets, eyes down. I'm trying to do better, he said softly. And for once, Ava believed him. Her apartment felt different now. Lighter. Less like a place she collapsed into, and more like a space she was building for herself. She spread out her paperwork on the kitchen table and rebuilt her budget, this time with her own hands, her own control, her own future in mind. She visited her parents occasionally, but the energy had shifted. She didn't shrink herself anymore. She didn't soften her voice or step back to make room for someone else's comfort. She sat where she wanted. She spoke when she needed to. She left when something didn't feel right. She finally understood. A boundary isn't a wall. It's a line that reminds you where you end and someone else begins. And her parents, for the first time, stopped pushing past that line. She was rebuilding, slowly, firmly, confidently. Not for them, not against them, but for herself. And as she locked her apartment door one evening, folder stored safely in her drawer, she realized something she'd never felt before. For the first time in my life, I'm building a future they don't get to rewrite or borrow from.